Far beyond the quiet blue world of Earth, the galaxy was ruled by a powerful alien empire known as the Zirith Dominion. For thousands of years, the Zirith had expanded across star systems, conquering planets and building one of the largest empires the galaxy had ever seen. Their fleets were massive. Their weapons were unstoppable. And to them, every other species in the galaxy was simply another world waiting to be claimed. The Zirith believed one simple truth. No one could stop them. One day, a scouting fleet from the Dominion traveled into an unexplored region of space. Their mission was simple: search for new worlds that could be added to the Empire. The fleet moved silently through the darkness of space until their scanners detected something unusual. A small yellow star. Orbiting that star was a blue planet full of oceans, clouds, and green land. The alien scanners began collecting data immediately. Atmosphere, breathable. Water, abundant. Life forms, millions. The planet was rich with resources and biological activity. To the Zirith, it looked like the perfect world to conquer. But then something strange appeared on the screen of the command ship. A red warning symbol. The lead commander, Admiral Zyron, stepped forward and stared at the data. His tall armored body towered over the control room as his glowing eyes studied the information. "Explain this warning," he said calmly. A scientist standing beside the console replied nervously. "Admiral, the system database has classified this planet as a death world." A low murmur spread across the bridge. Death worlds were extremely dangerous planets where life evolved under harsh and violent conditions. Most species in the galaxy avoided such places completely. The gravity was often stronger. The weather more violent. The creatures more aggressive. But the Zirith Dominion had conquered many difficult worlds before. Admiral Zyron simply waved his hand. "Death world or not," he said coldly, "it will belong to the Dominion soon enough." The fleet moved closer to the planet. From orbit, the view of Earth was beautiful. White clouds drifted across deep blue oceans while green continents stretched across the surface. But the Zirith scanners began detecting strange readings. Extreme storms forming suddenly. Massive oceans covering most of the planet. Wild animals capable of killing larger predators. And one more thing. A dominant intelligent species. Humans. The Zirith had never heard of them before. At first, the aliens were not impressed. The humans were small compared to many other species in the galaxy. Their technology looked primitive. Their planet had only recently begun sending signals into space. To the Zirith, they looked weak. Admiral Zyron smiled slightly. "This world will fall quickly," he said. But just as he finished speaking, every screen on the bridge suddenly flickered. A signal had appeared. It was coming directly from the planet below. The message was simple. No images. No complex language. Just a clear transmission translated instantly by the alien systems. The entire bridge went silent as the message played. "This is Earth." A short pause followed. Then the final sentence appeared. "Leave this system immediately. This is your only warning." For several seconds, no one spoke. Then one of the officers laughed. Soon others joined him. The idea that a newly discovered species would warn the Zirith Dominion was almost funny. No civilization had ever dared to threaten them before. Admiral Zyron slowly turned toward the communication officer. "Send a response," he said. The officer nodded. "What message shall we deliver, Admiral?" Zyron's voice was calm and confident. "Tell them the Zirith Dominion has arrived, and their planet now belongs to us." The officer began transmitting the message back to Earth. But before the transmission finished, the science officer suddenly spoke again. His voice was much quieter this time. "Admiral, there is something else you should see." A new file appeared on the central screen. It came from an ancient galactic archive, a database filled with warnings and historical records collected by thousands of civilizations over millions of years. The system had automatically opened the file because of one word. Death World. The message inside the archive was short. Very short. But the words were written in dozens of alien languages. Admiral Zyron read the translated lines slowly. Never invade a Deathworld civilization. For a brief moment, the bridge fell silent again. Then the Admiral turned away. Ancient superstition, he said dismissively. The massive Zirith fleet began preparing its weapons and invasion ships. Thousands of warships moved into formation above the quiet blue planet. Far below them, humanity was watching. And the warning they had sent had just been ignored. High above the blue world, the massive fleet of the Zirith Dominion moved slowly into position. Thousands of warships surrounded the planet like a dark metal storm. From space, Earth looked peaceful and quiet. But inside the alien ships, preparations for invasion had already begun. Admiral Zyron stood on the command bridge of the flagship Oblivion Spear, watching the planet below. To think, he said calmly, a species so small would dare warn the Zirith Dominion. The officers around him agreed. Many of them still found the human message amusing. But the science officer did not laugh. He was still studying the strange data coming from the planet. Admiral, the scientist said carefully, this world continues to produce unusual readings. Zyron turned slightly. What kind of readings? The scientist expanded the scans onto the central screen. Earth's gravity is stronger than most inhabited planets. Its weather systems are violent and unpredictable. The planet contains extreme environments, frozen poles, burning deserts, deep oceans, and constant tectonic activity. Another officer looked confused. And? The scientist hesitated. This kind of planet should not produce intelligent life so quickly. The admiral simply shrugged. Yet it did. He turned toward the navigation officer. Prepare the invasion fleets. We begin planetary control in 1 hour. Orders spread quickly through the armada. Massive carrier ships opened their bays as thousands of invasion craft prepared to descend toward Earth. Energy weapons powered up. Defense shields activated. The Zirith Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds before. This would be no different. But something strange happened. Several ships on the outer edge of the fleet suddenly lost contact with the main command network. At first, the officers assumed it was a simple signal interference caused by Earth's magnetic field. But when the communication officer tried to reconnect, the ships did not respond. Admiral, we are not receiving any signal from Patrol Group 7. Zyron frowned. Scan their location. The sensors quickly focused on the area where the patrol ships should have been. But the screen showed only empty space. The ships were gone. Not damaged. Not drifting. Just, gone. A quiet tension spread across the bridge. Could they have activated stealth systems? One officer suggested. The scientist shook his head. No Zirith ship has that capability. Zyron's voice remained calm. Send a reconnaissance drone. A small probe launched from the flagship and moved toward the empty sector of space. The drone's cameras scanned the area carefully. Then the feed suddenly filled with static. And the drone was destroyed. The bridge grew silent. No weapon fire had been detected. No enemy ships had appeared. But something out there had just destroyed one of their probes. Before anyone could react, another alert appeared on the screen. A second patrol group had vanished. Then a third. The officers began speaking quickly now. Admiral, we are losing ships across multiple sectors. Our scanners detect no enemy vessels. Energy readings are unstable. Zyron stepped forward slowly. Impossible. The Zirith Dominion had fought dozens of wars across the galaxy. They had never faced an enemy they could not see. Suddenly the communication console lit up again. Another message had arrived. This time, the signal came from Earth's orbit. The same calm voice appeared on the screen. You ignored the warning. Several officers became angry immediately. They dare threaten us again. But the message continued. Leave now. This is the final chance. Admiral Zyron's glowing eyes narrowed. Locate the source of that signal. The sensors searched Earth's orbit. And then they found something. Hundreds of objects. Small, fast, and moving in complete silence. Human ships. They had been hiding in the darkness near the moon and inside the asteroid belt. The Zirith scanners had never detected them. The human fleet began moving. Not toward Earth. But directly toward the alien armada. The communication officer looked at the admiral. Admiral, the human ships are approaching attack range. Zyron gave a cold smile. So the Deathworlders finally show themselves. He turned to the fleet commanders. Prepare all weapons. Across space, thousands of Zirith warships aimed their cannons toward the approaching human fleet. The humans did not slow down. They did not send another message. They simply kept coming. And then something happened that none of the alien commanders expected. The first Zirith battleship exploded. There was no visible weapon. No missile. No laser. The ship simply tore apart in a silent burst of fire. Another ship vanished seconds later. Then another. The Zirith fleet suddenly realized something terrifying. The humans were already inside their formation. And the battle had already begun. Across the command bridge, warning alarms began to scream. For the first time in centuries. The Zirith Dominion was under attack. Red warning lights flashed across the command bridge of the Oblivion Spear. Alarms screamed as more Zirith warships disappeared from the tactical display. Officers rushed between control stations, trying to understand what was happening. Admiral Zyron stood perfectly still, staring at the main screen. This was impossible. The Zirith Dominion had faced many enemies across the galaxy, but never like this. Normally, battles were loud and predictable. Fleets lined up. Weapons fired. Victory was decided by strength and numbers. But this fight was different. The enemy was invisible. Report, Zyron ordered. A sensor officer spoke quickly. Admiral, we are detecting hundreds of small vessels moving through the fleet. Their heat signatures are extremely low. Our scanners cannot lock onto them. Visual confirmation. The officer switched to an external camera feed. For a moment, the screen showed only darkness. Then something flashed across the image. A sleek black ship appeared for only a second before vanishing again. It was smaller than a Zirith fighter. But it moved incredibly fast. The science officer leaned forward. They are using some kind of advanced stealth technology. Another explosion suddenly shook the flagship. A Zirith cruiser near the center of the fleet burst apart as if it had been struck by an invisible hammer. Fragments of metal drifted into space. The bridge fell silent. How? One officer whispered. The answer came seconds later. The human ship appeared again. For the first time, the Zirith could see it clearly. It was long and narrow, shaped like a spear. Dark armor covered its surface, absorbing almost all light around it. Small blue thrusters glowed quietly at the back. The ship moved with terrifying speed. Before any Zirith weapon could fire, the human vessel launched a single projectile. The projectile struck another alien battleship. The result was immediate. The alien ship collapsed inward and exploded from the inside. The human vessel disappeared again. The bridge officers stared at the screen in disbelief. That weapon, it ignored the shields, the science officer said. Admiral Zyron's voice was calm, but his expression had changed. Show me their fleet. The sensors began scanning again. Slowly, more signals appeared. 10 ships. Then 20. Then 50. Soon the display showed hundreds of human vessels moving through the Zirith armada like silent predators. They never stayed still. They never attacked the same place twice. They struck quickly and vanished before the aliens could react. Another officer spoke nervously. "Admiral, the humans are not fighting like a normal fleet." The scientist nodded. "They are hunting us." More explosions filled space. Human ships attacked supply carriers first. Then communication ships. Then the largest warships. Each strike was precise and deadly. Within minutes, dozens of Zirith vessels had been destroyed. Panic slowly spread across the alien fleet. "This cannot be happening," one commander said. But the evidence was everywhere. The humans were winning. Admiral Zyron clenched his claws behind his back. "Deploy fighter squadrons," he ordered. Thousands of Zirith fighters launched from carrier ships and spread across space. The pilots expected to find human ships waiting for battle. But the humans were gone. The sensors showed nothing again. For several seconds, space became quiet. Too quiet. Then the fighters began exploding. One after another. Invisible attacks tore through the formation. The pilots could not see the enemy. They could not escape. Within minutes, the fighter squadrons were gone. The bridge crew watched in horror. The Zirith Dominion had always believed that strength came from power and numbers. But the humans fought in a completely different way. They were patient, careful, and extremely dangerous. The science officer slowly spoke. "Admiral, I believe we misunderstood something important." Zyron did not look away from the screen. "What?" The scientist pointed to the planet below. Humans evolved on a death world. Every day of their existence required survival against storms, predators, disease, and disaster. He paused before continuing. "A species like that does not fight for honor or glory." The screen showed another alien warship exploding silently. "They fight to survive." A new signal suddenly appeared on the communication console. It was another human transmission. The same calm voice filled the bridge. "You were warned." For the first time since the battle began. Admiral Zyron did not respond. Because now he understood the terrible truth. The humans were not defending their planet. They were doing something far worse. They were teaching the Zirith Dominion a lesson. And the lesson had only just begun. The battle above Earth had turned into chaos. Across space, pieces of destroyed Zirith warships drifted silently. Fires burned inside broken hulls. Escape pods floated between the wreckage, carrying terrified survivors. But the human fleet did not stop. They moved through the battlefield like shadows. Every few seconds another Zirith ship exploded. Inside the command bridge of the Oblivion Spear, the officers were no longer calm. The tactical display was filled with warning signals. Entire sections of the fleet had disappeared. Admiral Zyron stared at the screen as red icons continued to vanish. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. The tactical officer hesitated. "Admiral, we have lost nearly 30% of the fleet." The bridge fell silent. That number was impossible. The Zirith Dominion had not lost that many ships in a single battle in hundreds of years. Zyron clenched his claws. "Recall the outer fleets. Form defensive positions around the flagship." Across the battlefield, Zirith ships began regrouping. Massive warships moved closer together, creating a tight defensive formation. Energy shields activated across the armada. Heavy cannons pointed into the darkness of space. The Zirith commanders believed that if they stayed together, the human ships would not be able to strike them as easily. For a moment, the attack stopped. The battlefield grew quiet again. The alien officers waited nervously. "Admiral, the human ships are no longer visible," the sensor officer reported. Xiron narrowed his glowing eyes. "They are waiting." Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Some officers began to believe the humans had finally retreated. Then the sensors suddenly detected something unusual. Hundreds of small objects were moving toward the fleet. "What are those?" one officer asked. The scanner zoomed in. They were metal devices. Small. Sphere-shaped. And moving very slowly. "Unknown drones," the science officer said. "They appear unarmed." Several commanders laughed nervously. "Is this their next attack?" "Floating machines." Admiral Xiron raised a hand. "Destroy them." Alien weapons fired instantly. Bright beams of energy cut through space, destroying dozens of the strange objects. But hundreds more continued drifting closer. Some of them attached themselves to the outer hulls of Zirith warships. The officers watched with confusion. "Admiral, they are not attacking." Before anyone could say another word, every drone activated. A powerful pulse of energy exploded outward from each sphere. Across the battlefield, every Zirith ship suddenly lost power. Weapons shut down. Engines failed. Shield systems collapsed. The entire armada went dark. "Admiral," the engineers shouted. "All systems are offline." Panic spread across the bridge. What happened? The science officer stared at the screen in shock. It was an electromagnetic weapon. The drones released a massive pulse. The Zirith fleet had just been completely disabled. Thousands of warships were now drifting helplessly above Earth. And then the sensors detected something new. Human ships. Thousands of them. They appeared everywhere at once. Hidden fleets emerged from the asteroid belt. Stealth ships uncloaked behind the disabled armada. Massive human warships rose slowly from the dark side of the moon. The Zirith officers watched in stunned silence. The humans had not been fighting with their full strength before. This was their real fleet. Admiral Xiron slowly realized the truth. The earlier attacks had only been a test. The humans had been studying the Zirith fleet. Learning its weaknesses. Waiting for the perfect moment. Now that moment had arrived. A human command ship moved to the front of the fleet. The vessel was enormous, far larger than any ship the Zirith had seen before. Its dark armored hull reflected the light of the distant sun as powerful weapons began charging across its surface. Another transmission appeared on the alien consoles. The same calm human voice spoke again. "Your fleet is now disabled." The message continued. "You ignored our warning." A pause followed. Then the final sentence appeared on the screen. "This battle is over." Outside the flagship windows, thousands of human warships aimed their weapons at the helpless Zirith armada. For the first time in its long history, the mighty Zirith Dominion understood something it had never felt before. Fear. The battlefield above Earth had become silent. Thousands of Zirith warships drifted helplessly through space. Their engines were dead. Their weapons were offline. The powerful fleet that had once terrified the galaxy was now nothing more than floating metal. Inside the command bridge of the Oblivion Spear, the officers stared at the dark screens around them. Nothing worked. The fleet was completely powerless. Admiral Xiron stood near the window, looking out at the human fleet that now surrounded them. Hundreds, no, thousands of human ships filled the darkness of space. Large battleships, fast attack cruisers, and silent stealth vessels formed a massive wall around the disabled Zirith armada. For the first time since the Zirith Dominion began conquering the galaxy, their fleet was trapped. The communication console suddenly came to life. A new signal appeared. The bridge grew quiet as the message opened. A human figure appeared on the screen. The officers were surprised. Humans looked smaller and physically weaker than many alien species. The person on the screen wore a dark uniform with the symbol of Earth on the chest. But the human's voice was calm and confident. "I am Admiral Sarah Walker, Commander of Earth Defense Fleet." Admiral Zyron stepped forward slowly. "You are the leader of this attack?" he asked. The human shook her head. "No. I'm simply the one speaking to you." She looked directly at the alien commander. "We sent you a warning when you entered our system." Zyron did not respond. Walker continued. "Humanity prefers peace. We explore, we trade, and we build alliances. But we also protect our home." The human officer paused for a moment. "You ignored our warning." The Zirith officers watched the screen in silence. Walker leaned slightly closer to the camera. "Your fleet is disabled. You have two choices." The bridge crew waited nervously. "Leave this system immediately, and never return." The human admiral's voice became colder. "Or we will destroy every ship you brought here." The message ended. The bridge of the Oblivion Spear was silent again. Several Zirith commanders began speaking quickly. "Admiral, we must retreat. Our fleet cannot fight. If we stay, we will lose everything." Admiral Zyron stood still for a long moment. Then he slowly spoke. "Attempt to restore our systems." The engineers tried. Nothing happened. The drone's electromagnetic pulse had damaged nearly every major system across the fleet. The Zirith armada was completely helpless. Zyron finally understood the truth. The humans had been in control of the battle from the very beginning. The warning. The stealth attacks. The drones. Everything had been carefully planned. The Zirith Dominion had walked directly into a trap. The alien commander slowly turned toward the communication console. "Send a message to the human fleet." The officer nodded. "What shall we say?" Zyron spoke quietly. "We are leaving." Moments later, the human fleet allowed a narrow path to open through their formation. Emergency systems slowly began restarting across the Zirith ships. Engines powered up just enough for the surviving vessels to move. One by one, the massive alien warships began turning away from Earth. They did not fire their weapons. They did not speak again. They simply left. Hours later, the last Zirith ship disappeared into deep space. The battle was over. Back on Earth, millions of people watched the news as the alien fleet retreated from the solar system. Humanity had just faced one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. And won. But the story did not end there. Weeks later, a message began spreading across the stars. It came from the surviving Zirith commanders who had escaped the battle. The message was short. Very short. But every civilization that heard it understood the warning. Do not threaten Earth. The message continued. Humans come from a death world. There was a long pause before the final sentence. And they will destroy any empire that threatens their home. Across the galaxy, civilizations listened carefully. Because the Zirith Dominion had learned something the hard way. A lesson that would never be forgotten. Never ignore a warning from Earth.